having a questionable secondary helps when you have Will Levis on the other side for 2 games a year, and you have the Prince who pooped his pants, Trevor Lawrence, for the other 2 games a year. I mean,
When I come to your city, I'm a new score. Broke your high score soon as I step through the door. Tryna stack my paper up like a bookstore. Money kissing each other like a rock and roll tour. When I come to your city, I'm a new score. Broke your high score soon as I step through the door. Tryna stack my paper up like a bookstore. Money kissing each other like a rock and roll tour.
Hey, Tyler.
So, Piet.
What's going on? Welcome to the New Score podcast. My name is Pat. This is my co-host, TYG, Tyler Pratt. Tyler, how we be doing?
Oh, we be doing. I got some, I've been dealing with some things I got to talk off camera about. Actually, I wanted to mention to you before we started recording, which is funny. So remind me later and I'll tell you. But aside from that, it's about to be Labor Day weekend. A couple huge things coming up. We got a big auction draft, and then we got our dynasty draft. First year for our dynasty draft coming up. And maybe we'll even give you guys some content on that thing eventually. Maybe not this season, maybe not this week, maybe not next week, maybe not next month, but at some point, maybe we'll give some content on that. It should be good. We got a good group for it, so I'm excited. So it's a big Labor Day weekend for us here, and I hope everybody has a great holiday weekend and enjoys their days off. Unless you work in the service industry, then you're fucked, and we'll just, kind of same old schedule.
Been there. Football is right around the corner, and we are stoked to talk about it. The wait is over, Tyler. It's been a long wait, but it's over. Football every week, all the way until February. Can't wait. And it's time to dive into it. This is what we do. We're going to be dropping episodes twice a week throughout the season, talking about previews, recaps, big juicy bets, what we're taking out there, what looks good, what bets look good. And to start off the season, we're going to be doing these division previews where we're kind of just go through what teams gained, what they added, what they lost this whole off season. Now we got cuts have been made. Final rosters are there. They're set. So it's time to rock and roll. We got some injuries to talk about, some trades that happened. And we're also going to be having some guests of these teams talk about some of the questions that we have that they have for their specific team this season going into it. It's going to be a blast. Today we are starting with the AFC South preview, division that CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans won last season, coming out of nowhere, rookie quarterback. But that was a competitive division. It was supposed to be the Jags. Jags were a competitive team, obviously. Indianapolis Colts, even without Anthony Richardson going down last year, Gardner Minshew, that team was in it all season long. Very competitive team. And then the Titans, we got a lot to talk about the Titans. Titans are a completely different football team right now. When you look at their additions, their losses, brand new coaching staff, Vrabel's out of there. So the Titans is definitely going to we're going to talk about all that on this episode. So absolutely juiced up. Tyler, let's dive into it. What team do you want to start with in the AFC South?
I almost feel like we should draw out of a hat at this point, but how about this? Let's get Weed in here, and let's start with the Jags, because he's a little whoosh. He's got a dinner he's got to go to tonight, so let's get him in here and get him out.
Joining us now to talk some Jacksonville Jaguars, our boy Alex Weed. Weedy boy, what's going on?
What's up, fellas?
Not much. Talking some football. Can't wait to get into it with you. I know you're excited about your Jags this season. Just going through it. Jaguars finished last year 9-8. They started off the year 8-2, and then they ended up losing 5 of their last 6 to miss the playoffs last season after starting out as the favorite. They brought in a new defensive coordinator, Ryan Nielsen from Atlanta, and this team definitely made some moves this offseason. They brought in Eric Armstead. They brought in Mitch Morse and Gabe Davis from Buffalo. They got Ronald Darby, new cornerback, and then they brought in Darnell Savage at safety as well. They did lose Calvin Ridley, Darius Williams, and Rayshawn Jenkins. Just going through this roster, I mean, the roster looks good to me. I think this team doesn't really have any excuses offensively. Obviously, you got a new DC in there, and we'll see how they look with him. Bringing in Eric Armstead was big. I thought Mitch Morse was huge. Gabe Davis, we'll see. They did draft Brian Thomas Jr. in the first round, wide receiver. So excited to see how that kid looks. And obviously, ETN had a great season last year. Can he keep it up behind that offensive line? But the biggest question for me, and then Tyler, you could piggyback off of that. Right now, looking at this roster, I don't see many weaknesses at all, except cornerback is a glaring weakness. I know I said they did bring in Ronald Darby, but how effective is Ronald Darby at this point in his career? That remains to be seen. Nickelback is going to be a big question. Specifically, right now, Christian Braswell is slotted as their nickel. I like their safeties a lot, though. Obviously, Andre Sisco. I like Savage, Wingard, your boy, and then the front 7 is there too. But looking at the cornerback position, that is the weakness to me. Would you say that's fair to say, Weed?
Yeah, it's a young group of dudes. Obviously, besides Darby, I think he got brought in for a reason. Veteran leadership. He's been a part of some winning teams. He's got a history with Peterson. So I think it was kind of a mutual thing where he was brought in to kind of teach up and coach these younger guys. But besides him, that cornerback room is very young. You got, the rookie Jorian Jones, the other rookie, I think his name is Deshaun Prince. I could be wrong on his first name. They're both got drafted this year. And then Braswell had a pretty good training camp, and I'm excited to see him play. I think at nickel they're going to probably put Darnell Savage out there a lot because they got that extra, corner or safety. So they got Wingard, they got Cisco, and then I think Savage is going to end up playing a couple different positions. I heard him talk on, Jaguars Instagram about how he just wants to play as many positions as he can. But other than the corner position, I think the next weakness is our offensive line. I've been saying it for a couple of years now, how they needed to do something, and they really haven't, besides bringing in Mitch Morse, which was pretty huge. Also, again, veteran guy comes in from a team who's been, having winning culture the last couple of years. To come off of what you were saying about all of our offseason signings, they brought in dudes who win, bringing that to Jacksonville. So I like that in that aspect. They just went out and got guys that win football games, or from teams who win football games and have proven that they're, belong in this league. So I think that Balk did a pretty good job there in doing that.
We should mention Tayshaun Gibson. How long is that suspension? Because obviously that's
I think it's 6 games.
Okay.
6 or 8, but I would think it's 6. But
That's
that's huge. That's huge. He was on that 2017 team, and when I saw that we brought him back, I was real excited for that.
Right. So once you get him back, the secondary is definitely going to look a lot different, at least on paper.
Yeah.
But Tyler, what are your questions on this team?
Sorry about that. Apple, you go one screen to the other and you can't just click a button. Either way. So I guess just to echo, what you guys have been saying about the, the cornerback group and the offensive line, but sticking to the cornerbacks, the D line complements the secondary and vice versa, right? If you have a weak D line, the secondary kind of helps that D line by making the quarterback hold the ball a little longer. If you have a weak secondary, that D line helps by making the quarterback get rid of that ball a little quicker. So in this case, the Jags did help out their secondary by bringing in a guy like Eric Armstead. You hope that you continue to see growth from Trayvon Walker, who hasn't really
Well, he
been
has
that
had
guy,
growth over the last 2 years.
right? Like you see flashes, but you're really hoping he takes that next step. If he could take that next step, great. That puts them really in a different position as far as like that front seven goes, because their
Consistency.
linebackers are solid, right?
Our
Like,
linebackers are solid. I like Oluwakan and Lloyd a lot. And then Chad
mhm,
Muma, he got drafted I think 3 years ago. Hasn't really done much. And then in this
yeah,
new system that Ryan Nielsen has, he's been a huge run stopper in preseason.
yeah, and I mean they brought him in. Yeah, he was a third round pick back in 2022, just a couple years ago. So,
And then I'm
uh,
also excited about we got another linebacker from Florida, Ventrell Miller. He missed all
mhm,
last season. He was a rookie last year with a torn Achilles, and so this is kind of like his rookie campaign. But he's just a explosive guy. Saw him play a lot at Florida, and so I'm excited to see what he can do for the defense as well.
right. So, I mean, it's going to be exciting for them just to see this defensive group who was kind of middle of the pack last year, and bringing in Nielsen, this being his first year, seeing what he can do. Um, you know, that secondary it's gonna be tough though. I mean, slotted, they got Braswell slotted as like their nickel corner start, and he was a 6th round pick last year.
Hmm.
Other than that, just because that's the thing, depth too. Like,
Yeah,
God
there's no
forbid,
depth there.
one guy goes down, you don't,
I mean,
you know.
Tyson Campbell's our number one, obviously,
Hmm.
and I think he's a very good corner, but that's really all we got for now. And I'm hoping, being a Florida State guy, I'm hoping Jordan Jones develops into a great corner, but you just never know.
Right. So, I mean, that's really it with this group. Is I think that at least the first few weeks of the season, that's going to be the first thing we kind of look out for, at least for the defensive unit, is that secondary, and then seeing how that that front seven can complement them. So,
I think I'm more scared about the offensive line than I am the defense.
yeah, I mean that's another thing. I mean, PFF grades, like, Mitch Morse coming over, Brandon Scherf, those were the only guys really rated as a number one as a starter. Graded
Well,
as a
the rookie
starter.
last year, Anton Harrison, he had a
Mhm.
great he had a great rookie year, and I'm not worried so much about him. I don't think Cam Robinson's all that. Left guard, they don't know what they want to do. They traded for Ezra Cleveland last year and then paid him this offseason. And then they had Walker Little playing left guard in preseason. So I'm not really sure what they're doing. Scherf is great in the pass block, but he can't run block. He's getting up there in age. So and then you paid Trevor Lawrence all this money, so you're hoping that he plays good, but he's not going to play good if he doesn't have any time to throw the ball.
Well, let me ask you this: do you think this is a make or break year for Press Taylor?
That was my
Yeah,
next
oh yeah,
question.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And apparently he's calling plays again. So I personally don't like Press Taylor. He's proved that he should not be the play caller. I don't know what him and Doug Peterson have that Doug just will go to bat for this kid no matter what. But no one in Jacksonville likes him. This is definitely a make or break year for him, and I think that's coming from Shad Khan.
Mm, that's the
And
owner.
that's the thing. It's like the weapons are there, but it Trevor does need to take a leap this season, but at the same
Well, I mean,
time,
like you said, he was 8-2, and then look what you look back, he got hurt. So he was eight and
you
two
gotta
last year to start the year, and then the defense really fell apart last season.
but it's
Mhm.
about putting your quarterback in the best situations too. So I don't know how many I feel like the Jags lost 3 games last year, late in that year, when they needed a conversion on like 4th and short,
Oh
and
yeah,
they're throwing like 7-yard outs where
yeah,
like
like
where
a third
Lawrence
and
has to
one.
yeah, he has to like fit it in perfectly. Like the guy's draped on his back shoulder and he's got to put a perfect ball when you just need 1 or 2 yards. So
Mhm.
like that's just glaring like
Mm.
mismanaging your quarterback. That you got to put your QB in the best situations. And yes, he needs to play better. And I know he was hurt, but like coaching is so big. Like you see Andy Reid setting up Mahomes, how Bobby Slowick set Stroud up. And that's another thing. It's like looking at all these rosters after the AFC South is going to be very competitive
It's a
division.
dogfight.
Right. And it used to be just one team. Typically it's one team and then you got 3 below that in a different tier. But this year I feel like it's wide open. How do you think their roster matches up to the rest of the division? What concerns you with the rest of the division? Honest concerns.
Houston, their whole team looks good.
Yeah.
Those dudes have bought into that program, and CJ Stroud looked really good in his rookie year last year. And then they just went out and had some more, put some more pieces around him. And the Colts don't really look all that. I think it's a 3-way tie between us, the Titans, and the Texans. The Colts, I feel like, didn't do a whole lot this offseason. The Titans went out and they spent all the money that they had on everybody. They gave up everything to get anybody they could get their hands on. I personally hate the Titans. But
I wouldn't sleep on Indy though. I like their coach a lot. I like Gus Bradley a lot.
That also depends on I like Gus Bradley too. That also depends if Anthony Richardson can stay healthy.
Right.
Hopefully he can.
But they got Flacco.
That is true. That is true. We are big Flacco fans.
You cannot sleep on Flacco.
If they can get it done with Minshew, I think they can get it done with Joey Flacco.
So yeah, I think this division is going to be a dogfight. It's gonna go down to, week 17, week 18.
No, for sure. I mean, the one acquisition I think that they did that was underrated. You bring in Mac Jones, and just in case,
loves it. He loves it.
Just in case anything happens to Trevor, But
he's a different guy. You bring him home. He's from Jacksonville. He grew up right there downtown. He's having fun out there, and you could see the different style of play that he's playing with. He doesn't have any pressure, so he's just going out there. He's playing football with the boys, and I think that us three joke about it, but it's huge. God forbid Trevor goes down, and Mac Jones comes in and he's fresh, he's loose, he's dancing around, he's having fun, he's wearing a jersey that he used to wear growing up. Like, I'm very, very comfortable with our backup quarterback, and I think that's the first time I've ever said that in my life.
Yeah, hey, he's ranked as a 2, and he's going to be the 2. He doesn't have to be the guy, right? So let him get comfortable behind Trevor and learn a little bit. You never know; he'll probably be out of there in a couple of years. But one thing I wanted to bring up is, I think, not looking at the numbers too much, I feel like Jacksonville last year did a pretty solid job, mixing it up. They weren't really too pass heavy and they weren't too run heavy. I think they did a decent job mixing it up. When you look at it, you got ETN, who is your number 1 guy. And then last year they go out and they spend a 3rd round pick on Tank Bigsby, who had a very minimal role. And we know nowadays a 3rd round pick on a back is somewhat significant, because you don't really see backs go in the 1st round much anymore unless they're like the guy, like a Bijan Robinson, something like that. And then just this year they go and they get Keelan Robinson in the 5th round, when they could use that capital to shore up some other positions that may be a weakness. So I'm just curious. I don't know if you have any thoughts on the running back, if maybe they don't believe too much in ETN moving forward. Like how many years is left on his contract? Is he shored up?
No, he's got 1 more.
This is his final year.
Mm-hmm.
See, because that's interesting to me. You spent a 3rd round pick last year, a 5th round pick this year, when you already have a guy who is your guy. You haven't extended him yet.
I think that hopefully they do get a deal done. I don't think that there's any bad blood. I don't think that there's anything like that going on. Last year they got, like you said, they took Tank Bigsby. I really liked him coming out last year. He's an SEC dude. He's played against the best defenses in the country. He definitely did not have a good year last year. Everybody kind of was like talking down to him towards the end of the year. I mean, every time the kid touched the ball, it was like something bad happened. So it was like I really felt bad for him. Trevor threw him the ball. It came off of his hands, interception. Trevor handed him the ball off. He got hit, fumble. Like it was just one thing after another. But he looks thinner. He looks faster. I think that he's gonna play a big role in the offense this year. I was just telling my dad that the other day. They really stuck with him and went through the process with him, and he bought into what they're doing with him, and he plays a different role than ETN does. ETN will catch balls out of the backfield. He could line up as slot. Tank Bigsby's your old school power back. So they need what they needed to do last year, which is getting back to what we were talking about, how Press Taylor didn't run the offense the right way, or in my opinion the right way. On those 3rd and 1s, you hand the ball off to Tank Bigsby and you let him run through somebody, or fourth and inches on the 50, you hand the ball off to Bigsby and let him run through a couple defenders. That's what they drafted him for. And then so I think you're going to see more of that this year, because I had saw an interview where they said they were definitely going to get him more involved in the game. Keelan Robinson, I want to say that they drafted him for more of a special teams role, because you also have Dearness Johnson too. They re-signed him for another 2 years.
Well, they pick up Duvernay, and I think Duvernay is really like, you want a special teams guy, that's your guy.
That's your Agnew replacement.
Yeah, which I think was a good replacement. Agnew was falling off there towards the end.
Well, Agnew, he had some big fumbles,
big time fumbles,
some big time fumbles in crunch time. But yeah, I mean, because that's the thing too. You look at it, their offense last year. I mean, we talk about the defensive unit; they were mid. The offense, we know what Press Taylor. It's documented. They're graded, I should say, 27th on the offensive unit, and they really didn't do much there. They bring in Mitch Morse, they swap, right? They lose Calvin Ridley, and they bring in Gabe Davis. Other than that, you still got Kirk. You draft Brian Thomas, right? Use your first.
He's gonna be pretty good too.
You still got Evan Ingram, and then that offensive line is what it is. So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting year for Jacksonville. So,
I like the Gabe Davis pickup. I think I'm higher on him than you guys are.
I've never been too high on Gabe Davis. I always thought he was just a run straight down the field kind of guy. But, I mean, other than that, I don't really see him ever do too much in between the numbers. And maybe that changes. Maybe Buffalo just didn't utilize him the way that he could have been. But I don't know. So we'll see how that goes. It'll be
Parker Washington is the guy.
You like Parker?
He came on.
Oh,
when Kirk
dude,
down,
he's good.
Showed up.
Yeah, he showed up, made some huge plays last year at the end of the year, and then comes into preseason this year just balling.
Yeah, well, that's another
thing. He's
gonna right?
They're gonna have to play him. He played too well not to give that kid a chance.
I mean, they only spent a 6th round pick on him last year, and that's the biggest. Everyone, it's kind of known now. All of the rookies take typically a big leap from year 1 to year 2.
Yep.
You see the most growth. So that's why you're always high. If you see a rookie who has a good year, you're always very optimistic about their career, or at least their the rest of their tenure moving forward, because of that leap from year 1 to year 2. So yeah, I mean he's probably.
I think I told you guys this before. Like I do think he's a Christian Kirk's type player. Like their game is very similar, but I think he can help out in the offense. I really like the kid. He's hungry.
Vegas has Jacksonville over under on their win totals 8.5.
Oh, I got hammer the over.
Hammer the over. It's -110 both ways.
Our first 4 games are tough, dude. We got we could. I was just telling my dad this too. We could very well start the year off 0-4. It's very possible.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I think that's why it's at 8.5. That division, there's no easy game in the division, right? Pat kind of brought that up earlier. There's no cakewalk games. Like if you're in the AFC East, for example, like you've got a couple really tough games, but when you play the Patriots, that's almost a guaranteed W. But here,
I mean, you got the Colts at home. They haven't lost to the Colts at home in like 12 years. If you guys didn't know that. It's like 11 or 12 years straight that we haven't lost to the Colts at home.
Wow.
Well, I mean, I tell you what, I know everyone thinks that the Texans are probably a lock to win the division, but if you feel good about the Jags, they're plus 250 to win the division. So those odds really aren't too bad.
I mean, it's in my opinion, I think it's going to come down to us and the Texans. But obviously, I'm going to choose the Jags every day of the week. But
that's right.
Weedy, we look forward to having you back on, talking some Jaguars throughout the season. We'll be sure to holler at you. Thanks for coming on. Enjoy your dinner.
All right, see you, boys.
Peace.
Tyler, let's move on to the Indianapolis Colts. Team that finished 9-8 last season, third in the division. They did miss the playoffs, but boy, they gave it a go down the stretch last year. Shane Steichen in his first year proved that this guy can coach. I was talking about that with Weed. He was kind of underestimating the Indianapolis Colts when looking at that whole division. But to me, I like this team. They were competitive down the stretch without their quarterback, who they drafted in the first round, Anthony Richardson, last year. He goes down, and then Gardner Minshew has them in games. I mean, they gave it to Baltimore last year. I like where this team is at. They didn't do much as far as additions go. They brought in Joe Flacco as a backup, insurance policy in case Richardson does go down again. And then I liked the move to draft A.D. Mitchell in the second round of this year's draft. I felt like they needed a receiver. They brought back Michael Pittman. They got that contract done, which was huge for them. I like their offensive line a lot. Looking at their defense, I like their front a lot. Secondary played pretty well last year. It's not a great secondary, but they're not a bad secondary, and I like their coach, Gus Bradley, a ton. So coaching staff is very good. When we look at the rest of this division, it's like Weed's got questions on his OC, if he's going to be calling the plays and not Doug Peterson. The Titans got a brand new staff across the board, which we're going to get into, but it's a first-time head coach, first-time coordinators. And then obviously the Texans with Bobby Slowick and D'Amico Ryans, they're in great shape. But this team is as well. I like their coaching staff a lot. I like their roster a lot. There's not a ton of stars, but they're just a good quality football team. And if Anthony Richardson can stay healthy all season, he's going to be a weapon. You got him, Jonathan Taylor to worry about. They got some good weapons. I like A.D. Mitchell, and the offensive line is pretty good offensive line. What are your thoughts on this team?
Yeah, I mean, I think that move for Flacco, not to only bring him in as that backup option, that kind of emergency quarterback, but imagine with Anthony Richardson going into his second year, the potential we saw from his rookie season and now in his sophomore year, all of that knowledge, right? All that experience that Joe Flacco has. It's when you bring a guy in like that, it's so much more than just him being the backup. When you have a guy like Anthony Richardson that you're trying to build your team around and build for the future. So that's huge. I think that was a huge pickup. It's an underrated move. People look at it as just a backup quarterback. It's more than that. So shout out to the Colts for making that move. Also, shout out to the big bro, Davey. Mid Colts fan, but he is one. So, and also I want to say offensive coordinator might be one of my favorite coaching names in the NFL. Jim Bob Cooter is his name. Jim Bob Cooter might be my favorite name. So, with that being said, yeah, Samson, big loss on that front. Even without him, they have a really good front seven. Even if you take out the linebackers, they might have one of the better fronts in the league. If you included him in there in that front seven, they're in that discussion, probably a top 5, definitely top 10 unit. But a big hit nonetheless. Other than that, though, they have one of the better offensive lines in the NFL as well. I think that unit as a whole, another top 5, top 10 unit as well, down in the trenches, right? And then you have Jonathan Taylor leading the way. He's got his contract. He's healthy coming in. I think that's big for them. And then Anthony Richardson being that dual threat. As you mentioned, Pittman getting locked up, getting a Donnie Mitchell. They have a lot of good pieces. And I think that they are being a little overlooked at the moment, just because the Texans are who they are, and they made a ton of moves, obviously, to make themselves that much better going into this season. So people kind of tend to overlook what the Colts have done or what the Jags have done. With that being said, that secondary is kind of a little shaky, almost like what we brought up with the Jags. Other than Kenny Moore, Juju.
We got a couple of guests that are going to come on. Let's bring up those questions with them. Let's get them on here. Joining us now to talk some Indianapolis Colts, we got our guests Adam and Moose. Boys, how we doing?
Doing
Chilling.
well. Getting ready to take the division by storm.
Love it. Love to hear it. Appreciate you guys coming on, hopping on with us, talking some Colts, just going through it. Tyler and I talked about it briefly, going through this team. They didn't really add much. They didn't lose much. We thought Joe Flacco, getting him in the room was big because Richardson staying healthy might be a concern. I liked them taking A.D. Mitchell in the second round a lot, getting a receiver. Some of the concerns when looking at their defense, the cornerback position, I know Tyler was about to dive into that position. He had some concerns there. And then obviously Anthony Richardson just staying healthy, because we saw it last year in his rookie season. While he looked spectacular out there and he looks like a real weapon, staying healthy, is that going to be an issue? Because we just haven't seen the duration for him out there staying healthy. But bringing Michael Pittman back was big. I like where their weapons are at. Jonathan Taylor's a great back. Tyler, what were your concerns when talking about the cornerback position?
Well, it's kind of the same thing that we brought up when going over the Jags was, your front can complement your secondary and vice versa. In this case, which I had touched on, I love the Colts front, but that secondary, other than Kenny Moore, just question marks to me. So there's some names that I don't think a lot of people are familiar there with, like Juju Brents, Jalen Jones, Dallas Flowers, Darrell Baker Jr., guys like that. So other than Kenny Moore, Moose, we'll start with you first, then go to Adam. I mean, how do you feel about the rest of the secondary not named Kenny Moore?
I mean, you don't know until they're out there. Having a questionable secondary helps when you have Will Levis on the other side for 2 games a year, and you have the Prince who pooped his pants, Trevor Lawrence, for the other 2 games a year. I mean, secondary is questionable, but if the front is better than they were last year, they put a little more pressure on the quarterback, have a little less time to throw, give him time to prove himself. Also, if you have Richardson back, and you said we didn't add anybody, but we kind of are adding Jonathan Taylor since he was out for half the year because he wanted more money. So he's paid. He's going to be running the ball like a monster. Richardson's going to be running the ball 5 times for every 3 passes he throws. We're going to be running a lot of clock, not a lot of time for the cornerbacks to shit them pants out there.
And I love your coaching. Another thing I wanted to bring up is I was just talking to Tyler about it. I love this coaching staff between Shane Steichen, what this guy was able to do last year with Gardner Minshew. This team was in it down the stretch last year when they had no reason to be before the season, and then they lose their starting quarterback. And it's like he kept that team in it. And I talked to you about it last year, Moose. I was like, this guy is coach of the year in my eyes for what he has done in his first year, dealing with Jonathan Taylor holding out. First of all, your best player not showing up practice, and then your QB that you just drafted
Second best
in the building, he goes down, and you have Gardner Minshew, and you had this team in it down the stretch. So I love their coaching staff, Gus Bradley as well. But Adam, what are some of your concerns about this team?
Well, I mean, to touch on the secondary issue, yeah, there's a lot of unproven guys out there, but they definitely beefed up on the defensive line with Latu. I mean, this team likes to draft players that I can't pronounce half their names, but if they're getting to the quarterback, I really think it's going to complement the secondary, so that shouldn't be an issue. My biggest concern is Anthony Richardson. He likes to run like Andrew Luck did. He doesn't want to go down. He likes to take those hits, so I don't know if his body's going to hold up.
Love it.
In memoriam.
Yeah.
The anniversary was the other day of him retiring.
Yeah.
I feel it in my shoulder.
What a story.
So, yeah, I mean, if Richardson's body can hold up or he can learn to slide, I think this team will be pretty good. I'm really, really excited to see Adonai Mitchell. I mean, that speed's going to be nice to have a real legitimate deep threat downfield.
So right now, win-loss is sitting at 8.5, as I'm sure a lot of the rest of the division is around there. It's going to be just a crazy competitive division, very fun to watch. How confident are you when, honest opinion, when looking at the rest of the division? Like, obviously, you got the Texans to worry about. The Jags are the Jags. They're going to be competitive. The Titans got a lot better. I know Moose brought up Will Levis, but I happen to I have some confidence in Will Levis. I don't know about that coaching staff, that brand new coaching staff in Tennessee, but how confident are we this team competing in this division this season, realistically?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I mean,
Okay.
9 wins seems achievable to me. Titans fired their top 10 coach, and then all they have left behind is a bottom 5, bottom 8 roster. So I'm not too worried about the Titans. Texans are a problem. All we can do is hope for a regression year for C.J. Stroud. But, I mean, I like C.J. Stroud. He's a good guy. I'm excited for the city of Houston to finally have someone after the incident with the last quarterback they had. So to probably 2 losses to the Texans, that's okay. We've been beating them up for decades. So it's their time in the sun to actually be relevant for a few years. And then for the Jaguars, are we sure the Jaguars are good? Is Doug Peterson a good coach? Is he the Joe Flacco of coaches? He's had the 1 year, and then he's just kind of coasting off of that forever. And Trevor Lawrence, unless it's handed to him on a silver platter, he just drowns out there. I mean, he had Travis Etienne running the ball, who had a lot of head of steam last year for half the year. They got rid of Calvin Ridley, and then they panicked and they signed
Gabe Davis.
Big game Gabe, who's used to just Josh Allen Herculean throwing the ball out there to pick him off. I don't know. 9 wins seems achievable to me. I think they are a dark horse playoff team.
They also have a good history against Patrick Mahomes. That's another thing to mention, because we could talk about the division, but at the end of the day, if you're getting in the playoffs, just talking about the AFC as a whole and how you match up to the rest. They beat the Ravens last year with Gardner Minshew. I'm not sure what their history is with Buffalo, but looking at the Chiefs, I know they have good history against the Chiefs. So it's like, I don't know, if you get to the playoffs, is it safe to say like this team's going to be in it? They're not going to just be some pushover in the playoffs when going against those elite AFC teams?
Depends if Anthony Richardson can throw the ball. If he's just like running around in the regular season is show offy and looks nice, he wins you games. But I mean, Lamar showed us last year, you got to make those throws. And if Anthony Richardson, it's really truly his rookie year this year. It's a development year. If we show up in the playoffs, then whatever happens, only good things can happen. Win or lose, it's worth the experience.
Yeah, I mean, Moose pretty much hit the nail on the head. I'm comfortable saying that this team is guaranteed to make the playoffs. On paper, they have the roster to do it. It's just going to come down to health, especially with Taylor having nagging ankle injuries and Richardson. We don't know exactly what he's going to do. But especially looking at the division teams they're going up against, new coaching staff in Tennessee, I feel like Trevor Lawrence has a solid lineup of wide receiver twos. He doesn't have a real number one guy. Honestly, the only thing that concerns me is the Texans. I can't seem to find a single weakness in that offensive roster, besides the fact that Tank Dell's coming off a major injury. It's an insane offensive lineup. It's going to be fun to watch those games.
No
Dameon
doubt.
Pierce still running the ball for them?
No, they got
Joe
Mixon
now.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah,
but he's still there, yeah. And they got Cam Akers too.
It's insane.
They got wide receivers up the ass. Dalton Schultz at tight end. Like, defense improved. It's going to be great though. But I like where the Colts are at too, and I agree those games are going to be very fun to watch. And both stadiums, when those places are rocking, it's fun. Those were some great Colts Texans games back in the day that would decide the division. I remember those back when Andrew Luck was playing. So, Tyler, do you have anything else on the Colts?
Yeah, I was just gonna bring up with Moose and Rude. The thing that I think I love the most about the offensive side of the ball for them is their offensive line, the trenches for them both on both sides of the ball. But their offensive line, they have a great unit just as a whole, great group. And then with Jonathan Taylor being there week 1 instead of coming in week 6 or whatever it was, missing almost half the year because of the contract dispute, and then getting back in the swing of things, it takes a little bit. So with him having the training camp under his belt, with that offensive group or the line the way that it is, that also bodes well for Anthony Richardson, right? You give a guy like that who may not have the reads processed as quickly as a lot of veterans would, but giving him more time in the pocket is just going to be huge for him. And then getting guys like a Donnie Mitchell and just giving him more weapons to surround him with. So I think that their offense can be a really exciting group this year with that line leading the way. So I think that 10 wins is very achievable, and they're going to be in the conversation this year for sure.
Never
That's
once
good,
in my
man.
life wanted to buy a lineman jersey until Quentin Nelson came along.
It's
I love
respectable.
that dude.
I got this jersey about a week before Luck left forever, so
No.
I still haven't. I'm paused buying jerseys for a little while.
Can't blame you there.
Yeah, I can't. No.
Cannot blame you there.
I bought a
Fellas,
Darius Leonard
been a
jersey at
blast.
the beginning of last season.
Oh no. Oh
Yeah.
no.
Those are both bad beats on jerseys. So
Yep.
Leonard is the new Pat Anger. Just couple amazing seasons and then just nothing left.
I got to
I don't
stay
think
away
he's
from
been
DeForest
signed yet.
Buckner.
It's like a comet, just burns up.
Fellas,
Shame.
it's been a blast talking some Indianapolis Colts with you. We'll be sure to have you on throughout the season, check in how you're feeling about your team, and hoping that Anthony Richardson stays healthy, because it's just going to make it that much more fun in that AFC South. But appreciate you guys hopping on with us. Have a great night.
Another
Thanks,
AFC banner coming in.
what's up, brother?
Tyler, you got a special guest for Houston Texans?
No, dude. Come on, Pat. Give us one. What's up, brother? Come on. Give us one time.
Let's talk about some Houston Texans football. Team coming off of winning the division, getting to the divisional round of the playoffs last year before they lost to Baltimore. It's that team that we had a guest for the Jags. We had some guests for the Colts. This is the team that they are concerned with. I mean, CJ Stroud had a phenomenal rookie season, the best we've ever seen at the quarterback position. And they only upgraded everywhere: offense, defense. Brought in Daniel Hunter on the edge for defense. Azeez Al-Shahir, linebacker, I really like. They got him from Tennessee. Joe Mixon they bring in. Stephon Diggs they bring in. They did lose Jonathan Grenard. They lost Devin Singletary, Malik Collins, and Sheldon Rankins. But when you look at the additions versus the subtractions, Tyler, this team only got better. And they got Tank Dell coming off of an injury as well. So look at the receivers. You got Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Robert Woods is your 4, and then Dalton Schultz at tight end. Running backs, Joe Mixon, Damian Pierce, Cam Akers. That's all for CJ Stroud to work with. Pretty good offensive line as well, with a top-notch play caller in Bobby Slowick, who will very likely be a head coach next season. Defense, I like their secondary a lot. They're young. But Derek Stingley Jr. may very well be the best corner in this league by the end of this year or end of next year. And I say that confidently. Will Anderson had a stellar rookie season as well. They got him and Stroud last year, and both those guys balled out for that team. So, Tyler, I don't have many concerns for this team at all, except for there is such a thing as sophomore slump, which I'm sure you're going to address. And with CJ, it's like, can you really get better after that? Defense is adjusting to CJ Stroud. That's a big part of it to me. Part of the sophomore slump is you gain tape on players, and then you're able to adjust, and defenses pick up your tendencies. There's a lot of mouths to feed on that offense as well. So Another concern I have is interior D line. But what are your thoughts on the Houston Texans?
Yeah, they're good. That's it. They're good, and I think they're kind of like the Lions of the AFC. You mentioned Bobby Slowick. I feel like Bobby Slowick is in the same category as Ben Johnson. They're gone after this year. Both of these guys. I mean, pending what we expect, right? We expect the Lions to have another top 5, top 10 offense. We expect the Texans to have another top 5, top 10 offense. Both of those guys are going to be on their way out. Bobby Slowick's only been here for 1 year. He's kind of like a 2-year rental. He's gone. Ben Johnson's only been in Detroit for 2 years, and we thought he might have been gone this year, but they want to run it back and try to win one before he leaves Detroit, which I thought was a good year. But this isn't about Detroit. This is about Houston. And CJ Stroud may regress. I don't know, though, right? When you have a rookie who had that good of a rookie year, you expect some regression. But also at the same time, we've talked about it, that rookie to sophomore leap. So, and not only that, they've just made everything around him better. You've got young guys. Nico Collins was an absolute stud last year. Tank Dell, before he got hurt, was a stud last year. He's coming back. He's expected to be healthy to start the year. I haven't seen anything on him having any restrictions to start. There's not a questionable tag on his name that I have seen. They bring in Stephon Diggs. We all know who he is. He's a number one. So they have 3 number 1 receivers who are going to be on the field at all times. They're going to run 11 personnel. You have Dalton Schultz, who's a good tight end. Brevin Jordan is actually another solid guy. That's their tight end too. They have their offensive line is solid. I think that they have some question marks there, especially in the middle. I can see Jarrett Patterson probably getting a role sooner rather than later. But offensively, though, it's going to be, you bring in Mixon. I think that was the biggest thing from last year, right? You talk about the Texans, that run game. And now they bring in Joe Mixon, who has, no matter what anybody said, just been solid his entire career. Every single year, when you think Joe Mixon's going to take a step back, he just stays consistent. He's been one of the more consistent running backs probably of the last, I hate to say a decade. I don't think he's been playing quite 10 years, but that's what it feels like. Feels like he's been one of the more consistent backs of the last decade. So for me, when it comes to the questions about the Houston Texans, it's not offensively. I think offensively they're going to have a great year. Of course, it comes down to their defense, and they have a below average linebacking core. I'm gonna be honest. I think that's where their biggest weakness is. There is their linebacking core. But
well, let's talk about it. Christian Harris isn't terrible. He's injured right now, and then you got Azeez El-Shahir, guy I mentioned that they brought in, and I like him a lot. He came from San Francisco, where he played under D'Amico. I like Shahir a lot. And then you got Henry. I don't want to butcher this, but Henry T. He's from Alabama. He was a big prospect that Nick Saban recruited. I don't think he really. I think this is his second year. I'm not too sure, but I know he is young, so I'm not too down on their linebackers and their defense as a whole. I really like. Like I said, Stingley is going to be a dominant corner. I like their safeties a ton. I like Petre a lot. I like Jimmy Ward, getting him, another D'Amico Ryans guy from San Fran. And the front is good as well. This team doesn't have many weaknesses at all.
I can't. Yeah. No. And then they get Lassiter in the second round this year, but I can't believe they cut Desmond King. I thought Desmond King was solid. You cut C.J. Henderson. They keep Jeff Okudah. Miles Bryant's good. I mean, their secondary is definitely good. They have a good secondary. They have a good front. Will Anderson, Derek Barnett. They just have depth. I mean, and then they go on and get Danielle Hunter. So even though they lost a couple D tackles and Grenard, like, they just had depth. And then you bring in Danielle Hunter. They have the overall squad. They've got it. If their linebackers can if they can live up to your expectation, I can see this team getting at least 11 or 12 wins in the regular season and then making a run in the playoffs. They've got the
And
squad.
that's what I was going to bring up next, talking about their wins. Their win-loss right now is sitting at 9.5. That's it. And it's minus 140 to take over on that. And then their odds to win the division is plus 105. So
yeah,
take that as you may.
It might be hammer time for that over.
Yeah. The 9.5. What do you like more out of that? 10 wins or the division?
I mean, because the division is it's obviously very competitive, which we've talked about, but it's plus 105 for the division, which I think they'll get. So I might like the division more just because of the value there at plus 105 instead of minus 140 just to get that total. So yeah, I think the division, you're going to get more value in that if you're looking to bet this team. That's what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to hammer that division.
All right. Well, let's move on to the final team, AFC South, and that is the Tennessee Titans. I've talked about it already. I love what the Titans are doing. I love what they've done this offseason. They finished 6-11 last year, obviously. Mike Vrabel's gone. Brand new coaching staff. So that's really where the questions lie for me is we got a first-time head coach, Brian Callahan, first-time coordinators in there. So what's the coaching staff going to look like? But they brought in some guys. We talk about additions. They get L'Jarius Sneed from the Chiefs, dominant corner. They bring in Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams. They bring in Chidobe Awuzie at corner, Lloyd Cushenberry at center. Offense, they bring in Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd. And then as well on the defense, they just traded for Ernest Jones from the Rams, who he was a signal caller on the Super Bowl team. Sebastian Joseph Day, another guy who was on that Super Bowl team with the Rams. And then they also got Kenneth Murray at linebacker. So just a ton of moves from this team this offseason. They have the roster, but to me, it's like, is Will Levis a guy? I know I like him probably more than you do, Tyler. But at the same time, we got to see how this sophomore year for him is going to look. I like the tools. I think the guy's got a cannon. I think he's a great athlete. He looks like a linebacker out there playing quarterback. He's a fun dude to watch to me. And then also didn't even bring it up. They brought in Tony Pollard at running back. So getting him for the run game, you lose Derrick Henry, but you get Tony Pollard. The offensive line was horrendous last year. We talked about it all year long with this team. Maybe the worst O-line in the league. They did use their top 10 pick on J.C. Latham, so that was big for them. Skoronski was a rookie last year. And they bring in Lloyd Cushenberry. So you got 3 new starters on that O-line. But how is that O-line going to stay together? That's a big question I have for this team. And then obviously, as I already mentioned, the coaching staff as well. But what are your thoughts on this team?
Right tackle. That's my thought. When I look at this offense, I actually love everything about it. I think Okongwu is a little underrated. I think that, we've been waiting for him to take that next step, almost like a Kyle Pitts, right? Like we've been waiting for Kyle Pitts year after year to be the tight end that we thought he could be. But obviously Pitts was what overall pick was he? 6th a few years back, I think, something like that. Okongwu wasn't obviously that high. But just relatably being a tight end that we've been waiting to take that next step, who has potential. But everything else, I mean, I want to touch on Tony Pollard a little bit because I know after last year, there's people who've kind of like wrote him off. But he came off last year. He was coming off of a pretty significant injury from the year before. That not that he suffered like the beginning or the middle of the year. He got hurt in the playoff game. Right? So you're talking about the very end of the season, and then he recovered in time to still start the next year coming off of a significant injury. So there was no shot. He was not playing at 100%. Now you bring him in where he's going to be 100% healthy, and you're putting him back in a role that was somewhat similar to the role that he played in the 2022 in the 2022-23 season when he was 1A, 1B with Zeke in Dallas. And now you're giving that to him where he's 1A, Spears is 1B, or vice versa. However they want to do it, he's going to be fresh. And when you have Tony Pollard coming in fresh, he's an explosive back and he can do it all, right? So I think that they've surrounded Will Levis with everything other than a right tackle, which can be an issue, but as long as it's not their left tackle, right? J.C. Latham, rookie. So their tackles are the biggest question marks on that offensive side of the ball. Will Levis just kind of has to take that step that he, can take, right? I don't know too much about Nick Holtz, to be honest with you, first-year coordinator. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of what he does with this offense. And then, we can get into the defensive side of the ball after that. But, yeah, when you take a look at the additions that the Titans have made, this might be, in recent memory for me, one of, the more just quantity-wise big ads across the board for a team to make in 1 year.
So looking at this team, when it comes to the odds, right now their win-loss is 6.5. I might have to hammer the over on that, Tyler. Right now the over is plus 110. And then for them to win the division, I'm seeing plus 1,000. So another interesting bet, I think, just because, last year everybody thought the Jags were going to run away with it. Nobody was taking the Houston Texans to win it. You know what I mean? So you really don't know in this division what the hell is going to happen. So plus 1,000 to win the division, that's not a terrible idea. How realistic do you think it is for this team to compete for a division title this year?
So that's actually something that I've been waiting to bring up because they were the last place finish in this division last year. 10 out of the last 11 years, or it's something like that. It's like 10 out of the last 11 or 19 out of the last 20. There's just a crazy number that's at least 85 to 90% of the time. There is a team that goes every year. There is a team that goes from last place in their division to first. They go worst to first, right? There's a lot of teams, and we'll cover it as we go division to division. We'll cover it and how realistic we think that their odds are of doing that. And the Titans, I love what they're doing on the offensive side of the ball. It's just the defensive side of the ball is kind of what raises concerns for me. And
look at the additions, though. Look at the additions there on that defense. Look at L'Jarius Sneed. He's a top 5 corner in this league.
Yes.
Look at the safety position. What they already had with Hooker.
Mm-hmm.
The linebacking core.
That's
Jeffrey
the thing.
Simmons.
It's all like it's a lot of moving pieces with a new coordinator.
I agree with that. Yep.
All at the same time. So it's like if they can get all those moving pieces to fit that puzzle, right? Complete that puzzle, it can be a very good unit. It's just a lot to ask for all within one season. So we can see this unit maybe struggle to start, but I do think over the course of the year, you get them to build a little more chemistry. I think they can be a good unit, and this can be a good team, and they can give the rest of that division, a run for their money. But that's the thing. They have to play the Texans twice. They have to play the Jags twice. They got to play Indy twice. Those are 6 tough games, all interdivision. They got 6 tough games. I'm not positive their strength of schedule other than that, but again, a lot of moving pieces. I do like what they did, though. I like what they did. I just don't think
that's exactly what I'm going to touch on. Is you make a great point. A lot of moving pieces, brand new coaching staff. So teams with that tend to start out slow because it just takes some time to work through everything, get to know who you're playing with. So I wanted to take a look at their first few games of the season, and it's not easy. It's not going to be an easy start for the Tennessee Titans. They open up at Chicago. Caleb Williams' debut in Chicago. Week 2, they play the New York Jets. Then they play the Packers.
Tough.
Then they're playing at Miami.
Tough.
And then their 5th game is hosting the Indianapolis Colts. So you have 4 really tough games, and then you get that home dogfight division game against the Colts. And then, oh, by the way, the week after that, you go at Buffalo, at Detroit.
Oh, man.
and then you host New England. So this is a gauntlet. I mean, they also play the Chargers, and then we haven't even gotten to the Texans twice. So
That's brutal.
Bengals late in the season. Not an easy schedule for this team
No,
by any means.
there's actually a couple there's a couple teams who have brutal stretches to start the year. Another one that we'll end up covering later is the Vikings. They have a brutal start. The Vikings could end up going 0-8 to start the season. But that's the thing. This team right here, who we actually like, we mutually agree. We like what they did. And we're up on this team. But they could start 0-5. This team could realistically start 0-5. And it wouldn't be like, we wouldn't sit there and be like, wow, they're 0-5, they suck. It'd be like, dude, it's just tough.
Where's the win? Where's the win on that schedule?
Right. Like they could. All right, they could. If the Titans start off the year 2-3 or 3-2, I might hammer division. I might do it. But I can see this team starting off 0-5, and it's not that because I think that they're not good enough, but that's a tough stretch. But again, I think that the biggest thing to watch for is how that defensive unit starts the year collectively, and then those tackles on the offensive side of the ball, protecting Will, especially Latham being a rookie. But they spent a high pick on him. He's got to be the guy. So it's going to be interesting to see this team and how they play out with the rest of this division because it's tough. This is going to be one of the more competitive divisions across the NFL.
Yeah, and it was a blast to talk about it. I'm glad we started out with this one because it's going to be a fun division down the stretch to see what unfolds. And if some guys stay healthy, it's going to be fun. We could realistically see 3 teams from this division getting in. I know the AFC is loaded. There's a lot of really good teams in the AFC, but it could happen. You could see 3 teams from this division very well get in the playoffs. But that is it for our AFC South preview. Thank you to our guests for hopping on, talking with us. If you're on YouTube right now, don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Get at us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. We will see you next time. Goodbye.
Peace.
Anytime now.
Oh, you're waiting on me, dude? I thought you were going to ask, and then okay. Hold on.
When I come to your city, I'm a new score. Broke your high score soon as I step through the door. Tryna stack my paper up like a bookstore. Money kissing each other like a rock and roll tour. When I come to your city, I'm a new score. Broke your high score soon as I step through the door. Tryna stack my paper up like a bookstore. Money kissing each other like a rock.